Welcome to Reset Diaries, a show where we explore the stories of individuals who have navigated significant life transitions, forging new paths for themselves along the way. Today, in our very first episode, we are going to talk about trailing spouses with a very dear friend of mine. Why trailing spouses? First of all, it's a term which was coined by Mary Bralov and was first cited in Wall Street Journal in the year 1975. Trailing spouses, for those who don't know, are individuals who accompany their partners to new countries, often pausing their own careers in the process. And surprise, surprise, whopping 82% of trailing spouses are women. While it's a great opportunity for new avenues, the reality is far more complicated because these accompanying partners who are equally qualified leave behind their careers, their social circles to grapple with feelings of isolation and frustration. So stay tuned for this insightful discussion on this overlooked aspect of expat life. I'm speaking with Garima Mamgane, who is currently a global segment marketing manager at 3M. Formerly, she was a digital marketing lead at the Porsche Group India. She had a stellar career in the automotive industry and was set out for a leadership path. But her career took a turn when she became a trailing spouse and relocated to Singapore. Despite all the challenges which any trailing spouse faces, she not only found her footing, but is thriving in her career now by becoming a key voice in the field of marketing. I'm excited to uncover the strategies, the insights, and lessons from Garima's tale of reinvention. Hopefully, it inspires you all. Stay tuned.
Hi, Astha. Thank you for having me here. Super excited for this conversation.
Me too, me too. So, Garima, we'll dwell a little bit into your past. You're a trailing spouse. I'm also a trailing spouse. But I want to ask from you, how did it unfold for you, the whole decision of relocating to Singapore? If you can explain to our audience a little bit.
Sure, sure, Astha. So, for me, this entire journey of trading spouse, I mean, I've done it twice, but the one we'll speak about today started somewhere in 2018. Start of 2018, I was very happy with my career, the way I was positioned. Like you mentioned, I was leading digital marketing for Porsche in India within the Volkswagen Group. I had been in the automotive industry for roughly 3.5 years by then. I was in a leadership position, and as you can imagine, there are not too many women in that automotive industry. And I was really, I felt very grateful for what I had. I loved my job day in, day out. And I also had a very clear path to where I want to go next in my career, which was be a country director for one of the automotive brands, preferably within the Volkswagen Group. And I felt like I was hustling every day. I was in the right place to get to that position in 2 to 3 years. So that's where I was, start of 2018. And that's when my husband, he came across a wonderful opportunity here in Singapore. And for us as a family, it was a net positive to move.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, I had to take a call to leave my job, the job that I loved in India, and move to a new country where I had no connections, no network, and start the struggle of finding a new job. By then, I was a mid-career hire, and I'd been doing marketing for almost 10 years across industries. So I really needed to pause and restart for the first time. For the first time, when I was 21 years is when I got my first job, and I've largely been financially independent. So it was really unsettling because for the first time I was not making any money. I have a very supportive spouse. My husband is extremely supportive, but despite of that, I was never used to the idea of not making enough, moving to a country which is extremely expensive compared to where I was coming from. And every day, even when I had to go meet people and, buy a coffee, I would do the exchange rate calculation in my mind and think about how expensive, this cup of coffee is going to be for me. So
Yeah.
it was a really time driven by anxiety. And also, we often base who we are as people based on where we have studied, the kind of jobs we have done. A lot of our personas are around, all of these education and your work experiences. And when I moved to Singapore is when I realized that, my pedigree or my work experience in India isn't helping me open more doors. And also I had very little network. I was in India, it was very easy for me to approach someone because my degree of separation with anyone in any company would be maybe 1 degree of separation at maximum. Because, I'd studied there, I had large network. And when I came to Singapore, I realized my network here really was very poor. So even if there were opportunities that were opening up, I had no way of reaching out to the line managers in those companies. So truly, in the real sense of the word, I was really starting afresh in many ways.
So it was like a reset for you. And I'm amazed that you already broke a glass ceiling while you were pursuing your career in the automotive industry in India, where there are already very few women, and then you had to restart and refresh. So I wanted to ask you, was it like a thoughtful, conscious decision, or when you landed here, you were wondering, oh my God, what did I do?
No, actually, moving countries, it wasn't something I had thought about. And to be honest, when I look at it now in the hindsight, I don't think I thought much about it. I just left my job and said, okay, you know what, at worst, I'll find a job. But the realization dawned on me only when I had to start looking for a job here. And I'll just give you a story around this. So when I started looking for a job, I saw a job opportunity that I really liked, and it had a phone number of a recruiter that I could call and speak to. So I picked
Mhm.
up the phone. In my mind, I had done this discussion a few times, and I had done the research, and and at the end of that conversation, the recruiter asked me, "So, how much are you expecting in terms of salary?"
Mm.
And there's a range of salaries that come out. There are multiple companies that release that, and I had quoted a lower range of that salary,
Mhm.
and the person on the other side of the phone sort of told me, you know, these are unrealistic expectations. You'd probably get half of this.
Mm.
So that was my pretty much my first conversation with the recruiter, and the first thing that she told me, and I'm sure she meant well. She was trying to avoid disappointments in the
Yeah.
future. But for me, that experience was that even if I asked for the lowest of the lower range of this
Mm.
job scope, I might not even get half of it. So
Mm.
it was then when it really dawned on me that, look, this is going to be far more difficult than what I thought it would be.
So you already lowballed yourself, but then it was even further taken down. Did that shake your confidence then?
Oh, a lot, a lot. So I think I was doing quite a few things wrong at that point in time, because clearly, I mean, that first conversation that I had was actually 2 months after landing here, and
Mm-hmm.
I was first things that you do typically when you have to find a job is you go and do carpet bombing. So you apply for hundreds of jobs, and I heard
Yeah.
nothing. Then I reached out to my limited first network of people. I did not activate second or third network, and I heard
Mm.
nothing. And I think the worst thing that I did for myself was that I would end up meeting people, having a cup of coffee, great conversations, but I never got comfortable with asking for what I needed. So I
Mm.
never told anyone that, I sometimes I would just have a conversation, awesome coffee, but I never ended up that conversation with saying that, look, here I am. And if you know someone looking for a marketing, leader, please let me know. And
Mm.
I feel like asking for what you need is so easy on paper, but so tough when you have to execute it in person. So
Mm.
that these three things really, I think, took a lot of time for me to get over. And this call that I had with the recruiter was sort of like that, something that shakes you up, or a wake up
Mm.
call to say that whatever I've been doing for past 2 months, that's not working out. And if I continue what I'm doing, I'm going to end up in situations where I'll not even get half of what I truly think I deserve.
As they say, to get different results, you need to do the things differently. If you keep doing the same way, then the results also will be the same. So I want to ask you, Garima, that when all this was happening and first 2 months have passed, what was actually your game plan? And you know, who was your support system around to kind of keep you sane, because it's not an easy task to look for a job. What was your process around it, if you can walk through that?
Sure. And I think as the process is the keyword that you picked up.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I did three things differently, starting from that experience that I had with the recruiter call. And it sounds like a linear path, but really I took a couple of days to think this over. So the first thing that I did is that I decided for myself that every week I will end up meeting three people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether they were three hiring managers or three marketers, it didn't matter. I had to meet as many people as I could. So the goal overall was to land a job that I would love here in Singapore. But the process around it was, how do I expand my network? Because
Right.
that to me was my biggest challenge. So I had to meet three people every week. Sounds easy, but it's not. So what
Mm-hmm.
I did for myself is I formed this like a pyramid scheme, if you can call it that, in a positive way. That every time I went to meet someone, I would
Mm.
tell them that, look, here I am and I'm looking for a job. If you know people who might be interested in either hiring me or other marketers who do jobs similar to me, do you
Mm.
mind connecting them with me? Are there three people you could refer me to?
Mm.
And that helped me sort of start this pyramid scheme. So every time I met someone, it was, they would take a pause, think about three people they could connect me with, and
Yeah.
then I would do the follow through to make sure I connect with those three people for a
Yeah.
cup of coffee. So
Yeah.
I think that having that process or that system in place, what it did is, my motivation would go up and down depending on how my job search was going. But
Yeah.
the fact that I had a system, kept me going every single day. So that was
Right.
one. Second was, I feel like I really understood the power of writing and using LinkedIn for
Mm.
networking at scale, as I call it now. I started writing on LinkedIn regularly, so it didn't really have to be. I would create, I would curate, I would comment on people's posts, and that was a way for me to actively find new people online. So if
Mm-hmm.
for a post, even if three people end up liking my post, it's actually I'm sort of developing a new network with three new people. So it was at scale for me in that sense.
Mm.
And the third thing that I did with LinkedIn, so one of course is expanding your network. Second is, how do you remain top of mind for hiring
Mm.
managers who you've just met? So there is this entire theory in marketing which is called mental availability, which
Right.
says that brands which are remembered are the ones that get, bought eventually. So there's mental
Right.
availability and physical availability. If I take that same theory into my own job search, I'm a
Right.
personal brand, and how do I remain mentally available? And that was through digital channels as well. So I really leveraged, if I found a good report, I would share it with someone who I thought would be interested in it. If they wrote a post, I would try and leave a thoughtful comment if I could. And
Mm.
of course, I would keep posting so that I would keep showing up in their feeds as well. So those were the three things that I did. Astha, one is, I made this pyramid scheme, like I call it. The second is I really did networking at scale using LinkedIn. And third, I developed mental availability for myself with those hiring managers using the
Mm.
digital channels that I had. And
Yeah.
I think then you ask me, how did I keep myself sane? I think that really, it's a combination of effort and of course luck. The first thing is I've that time was also a time. I mean, of course, there is anxiety and there is this job search, but it's also a time when you can really get into reading and thinking. And there's
Yeah.
this specific psychologist that I was reading who's called Phil Stutz, and he sort of came up with this pyramid, which said that every time you are driven by anxiety or there are stressors in your life, there are three things you could do. One is
Mm.
relationship with your body. Second is relationship with family and friends. And third is relationship with yourself, which is at the higher
Mhm.
level.
Oh,
So for me, the
wonderful.
easiest, yeah, I think that pyramid. So again, relationship with your body, relationship with your family and friends, and relationship with yourself.
Right.
And I think for me, the easiest thing to do was relationship with my body. So I really got into movement. I walked, I ran, I exercised. And what I noticed was that every day I did something for my body,
Mm-hmm.
my mood was, immediately
Yeah.
perked up. So I
Yeah.
think there is definitely a relationship between exercise and mood and motivation. And
Yeah.
I think I cracked that during this time because you are more sensitive to everything that is happening around you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's very right that you said so because often we associate physical movement with, the health physical benefits, but it has far greater benefits when it comes to your mental health. And because if nothing, you have cracked one big thing of your day is that you did something for your body.
Yeah. So I feel like, and then, as you're right, having that movement is one of the most controllable things for us. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah. So that was one that I did. And the second, of course, is relationship with your family and friends. So when you move to a new country, the first set of natural friendships that you cultivate are your daughter's friends' mothers that end up being your first set of friends. That's the easiest. That was the path of
Yeah.
least resistance for me, and
Yeah.
I think therein I lucked out. And a huge shout out to those mom friends that I had because they really provided me the ear to listen to. Sometimes they
Mhm.
could help me, sometimes they couldn't, but I had that outlet to go and have that conversation. So I actively sought out friendships, which I know get more and more difficult as we age, I would say, but I
Yeah.
found the path of least resistance and worked from there.
But that's very good because often we think that we'll figure it out on our own. It's so important to have right set of friends who can really push you and make you feel seen, make you feel heard, and make you feel you are not alone sailing in the boat. My 2 cents here, being a trailing spouse myself, is that you're not the first one and you'll not be the last one. So reaching out, I believe, is really the key here.
Well
So,
said.
okay. So moving on, Garima, while all this was going on, can you tell me how long then it took you from landing to Singapore to cracking your first gig here?
Yeah, so I remember these months and dates pretty well. So
Okay.
it would be roughly 7 odd months of hustle day in, day out, to
Correct.
finally land that foot in the door that I really wanted.
Do you think like if somebody moves or relocates to new country, this kind of timeline of 6 to 7 months is a good time frame to keep in mind? How much time you should give to yourself and not be harsh on oneself?
Yeah, I think that's a super, super tough and tricky question. All of us will have different timelines. Uh, some
Mm-hmm.
people just land and get a job in a month, but I would say, don't press the panic button. Honestly, when I started pressing the panic button, I was pretty close to getting my first job. So when I thought that, okay, this is it, I should give up, is exactly when things changed for me. So I
Right.
feel like we're just one good interview away from that opportunity, and that could
True.
happen in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. But the
Yeah.
idea is to not give up.
Right. At the end, you just need that one person to believe in you and take a shot on you. Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
always
yeah,
take heart in the fact that we don't need hundreds of jobs. There are hundreds of opportunities. So long as we get
true.
that one wonderful opportunity, uh,
True.
that's all we need.
Okay. That's good to hear, Garima. But now I'm curious that was there any moment or a situation that happened which made you feel that okay, things are going in the right direction?
Yeah, it did. I mean, it's really a funny story, and I love telling the story, Asta. So I had just given the interview for Caterpillar, and I hadn't heard back from either the recruiter or the hiring manager. So, I just gave the interview and I decided that, okay, I'll take a break and I'll go,
Oh, that's a tough
in.
one.
It is. I wouldn't recommend doing it. It's just that I hadn't researched it enough and I really needed a break. So it was tougher than what I thought it would be. And yeah, so I was doing this Mount Rinjani climb and we reached this point where you have the milestone one, after which you start losing cell phone signal. So you reach a
Mm.
certain height where you literally feel you can see the clouds, you're above the clouds. And after that point, you're not going to have cell phone signal for the rest of two days that you're going to be
Yeah.
on the trail. And I just opened my phone at that point in time, just to sort of check who called me. And the first call I got, literally the first call I got, was from the recruiter. And he
Wow.
said, yeah, I know, right? He said that, Garma, wonderful feedback from Kat, and can we have your interview in 2 days? So put the phone down. And Asta, I can tell you, physically, mentally, emotionally, I was really at the top of the world.
Wow.
So it was a really surreal moment. You're on top of a mountain and you get a piece of news
That
that also, yeah,
I've been waiting to hear.
right, at the right time. So I think sometimes, these moments form part of your core memory. And for me,
Yeah.
our entire climb to Mount Rinjani and this call happened at the same time. So
It's like everything unfolding at the right time for you. Nice. That's nice. Okay, Garima, we'll have another icebreaker session now. So I'm going to ask you what quality about yourself you would like to pass on to your daughter?
wow. How do we be modest about this
No,
and
there's
pass
no
it
need to
on?
be
There's no
modest.
modesty.
Modest.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, I feel like this entire experience, especially this experience of finding a new job, has really helped me develop empathy
Mm,
towards people. So and I know this is the icebreaker, but really, I think one thing I want to pass on to my daughter is that ability to be empathetic
mm,
towards everyone and be able to sort of look at things from their point of view as well,
mm,
and understand that a lot of times people end up in situations partly due to their choices but also partly due to uncontrollable situations, and as much as you can, as far as you can, you have to help people. So that empathy is something that I which I cultivated ultimately, and I learned. I hope I'm able to pass on to her.
And being a very good friend of yours, I have seen that empathy always coming out from you. So, yeah, I can 100% vouch for that. And I'm sure it reflects in every aspect of your work, whether it's professional or personal. So, yeah,
Oh,
great work.
thank you. Thank you, Asta.
Wonderful. So, Garima, next question I want to ask you is, if you have to give three tips to someone who is either going through a similar situation or might go through the similar situation in future, what will be your top three tips for them?
Sure. So, Asta, I think in terms of three tips, the first one that I would give, and we've spoken about this in the past as well, is that we all have a very linear view of what does sponsorship mean and what does it look like. So we always
Hmm.
think of sponsorship as, there's this big board of directors
One big,
sitting.
yeah,
Yeah, the big one, and there's a CEO who gets up and says, I think Garima can do this role, and
yeah,
that CEO pulls you up. So that's
yeah,
sponsorship for you. And I think that we have romanticized this one, unidimensional view of sponsorship. And I wish that we've spent more time looking at sponsorship differently. I term
hmm.
it as micro sponsorship. So what that means is that, every time you go and meet someone, you have a coffee, have a ask which is very clear and
Hmm.
something that the person is able to deliver to you. So for example, if you meet someone and you say, look, here I am, I'm looking for these roles. Can you connect me with three other people who
Hmm.
might hire people like me in future? This is a better ask than, asking for the big, give me the next CMO role. And I
Yeah.
call this, moments of micro sponsorship. And I think we should invest in creating these moments of micro sponsorship. They are far more controllable,
Hmm.
repeatable, and they can happen more frequently in our career. So I would say the first is this moment of micro sponsorship. You need to create those.
So
The
don't big
second,
up the sponsorship. Look at
yes,
it from a, yeah, okay, interesting.
absolutely. You said don't think of it as this big thing. It could be also
Hmm.
smaller sponsorships. So that's one. And the second one I would say is find your tribe. And it sounds very trite, and every time I used to hear it that you're an average of five people around you, I really questioned it. And I read this article about have your personal board of directors, which I
Yeah,
think is absolutely true. You need to have a tribe, a gang of girls, or people who can help you achieve
yeah,
different objectives. For me personally, I have this group of women who I'm connected on WhatsApp with, and anytime we have some time, we catch up for an impromptu coffee, go out and do things, etc. Sometimes it's work, sometimes it's not, but it really helps when you surround yourself with people who are ambitious, who are not trying to pass judgments on you, and who are always looking
yeah,
at how can they support your thinking. You tend to think bigger, you tend to think higher. So find your tribe and invest in this personal board of
hmm.
directors, as you call it. I think that's a wonderful concept, and we should all internalize it. So
Yeah,
that's second. And I think the third one, which is a bit, I would say something that I learned over time, is that when I was gunning to find a job, I thought that is the goal. Once I get this job, I'm going to be super happy. But
yeah,
actually, it was not. We are all human beings. We have this idea of concept of hedonic adaptation. So, we all aim for a goal, and once we get there, that becomes
yeah,
our norm. And then you
yeah,
have to think of what can I do beyond that to keep going. So we spoke about systems, but this hedonic adaptation forces you to keep improving your systems, taking them further from
hmm.
where they are. So for example, for me, I decided that I have to keep building this network. I cannot
Hmm.
stop. And to keep building that network on scale digitally, I need to continue to be more and more present. And
Hmm.
what I did last year is I committed to writing a weekly newsletter,
Hmm.
and I write it on Substack every Wednesday. Rain or shine, I publish that newsletter. So some weeks are terribly busy, but I have committed to it publicly. So I
Right.
end up writing on Substack, and because I write on Substack, I clarify my own thinking, and
Hmm.
second, I have unlimited amount of content to share on my LinkedIn as well. So
Right.
I'm able to repurpose that content in other avenues as well. So I think this entire idea of keep upgrading your systems, because that
Hmm.
hedonic adaptation will ultimately catch up with you. And
Hmm.
you have to keep it's a bit of a cycle, and you have to keep thinking about how can you do better than where
Right.
you are right now. So that finding one job is not the goal. It's probably one more milestone, and you
Yeah.
will move ahead. So those are the three tips I have. Asta, create moments of micro sponsorship, find your tribe, and then keep upgrading your systems.
Very well. I loved it. I love the concept of micro sponsorship because honestly, in my head, it was one big thing. So thanks for clarifying for me, and I hope for others as well that it could be very small moments, and by just putting ourselves out there, we can potentially create more such moments. And I love this hedonic adaptation also. It's a new term for me. So I loved it, which is again the continuum of, building your networks, creating your personal brand. Because often, it's a joke once you start getting very active on LinkedIn, people think, oh, this person is now looking for a job or, wants to change. So if you continue doing this for no rhyme or reason, you just continue building your network, that pays in a long run, I believe.
Absolutely. Well said, Asta. And I agree. I mean, that LinkedIn and job search are so intricately linked that sometimes I have trouble explaining it to people.
That why are you doing it still, right?
Yes. And,
Or
and
why
then I
are
have to,
you writing
yeah, and I have
the
to
newsletter?
100%. Yes.
It's truly great, Garima, and I've been observing that throughout our discussion, whatever things you said, I feel you were very intentional about every action that you took. That there was a reason why I want to find my tribe because it's an investment for myself. Why I want to do network at scale. So you were very intentional and you created an action plan or a process around it, and you executed it. For me personally, listening to this has been really motivating and inspiring. And anybody who is going through the same situation, or even if they're struggling to find their footing, I'm sure the things that you explained would be of great help. Thank you very much, Garima. This was really a very insightful discussion. Before we close it, if you can tell us how, if anybody wants to reach out to you, where they can find you, and if anybody wants to subscribe to your newsletter. I am the subscriber. It's a great one, great read. Every time I look forward to it. So, where and how they can subscribe to it?
First, thank you, Asta, for this conversation. It's not easy for me to get vulnerable. I'm only doing this because it's you. And so you're wonderful and you bring this out in me. So thank you for that, Asta. And if anybody wants to reach out to me, trailing spouse or not, my name is very unique. It's Garima Mamgaing. You can find me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my TikTok and my Instagram. And of course, I write The Marketing Dojo on Substack.com. So if you type in Marketing Dojo and Substack on Google, you'll find me, or find me on LinkedIn and you'll find it
Yeah,
anyway. So please
sure.
reach out.
Yeah. So LinkedIn is the most easy way to reach out to Garima, and you can find all the information about her on there. Thank you very much, Garima. Thank you.
Thank you, Asta.